and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. 18 opposition parties have decided to field former West Bengal Governor Gopal Krishna Gandhi as their joint candidate for the post of Vice President. Gopal Krishna Gandhi's name was endorsed by all 18 opposition parties, including the JDU, which is backing the NDA's candidate in the presidential poll. Opposition leaders including AICC General Secretary Ghulam Nabi Azad, CPIM General Secretary Sitaram Yechuri and TMC's Derek O'Brien called the former governor from a meeting to seek his consent. The NDA is yet to name its nominee and is expected to do so in the next few days. The vice presidential election, if required, will take place on August 5th. Votes will be counted the same evening. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will take a closer look at the vice presidential elections. Joining me on the program today are Aditi Phadnis, political editor, Business Standard; Ashok Tandon, senior journalist; Vinod Sharma, political editor, Hindustan Times; and Professor Pushpesh Pant, political analyst. Thank you so much to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Vinod Sharma, I'd like to begin with you, of course. The name of Gopal Krishna Gandhi has been endorsed by all 18 opposition parties, but it's a foregone conclusion, isn't it? I mean, the NDA candidate is going to win this election.
First of all, let me make 2 points. Of course, it's a no-brainer because BJP has overwhelming numbers if you include their big majority in the Lok Sabha. And the electoral college for the vice president is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, including, interestingly, even the nominated members can vote for the vice presidential election. But this choice of Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi is important to me as a student of politics for 2 reasons. One, well, of course, if I say lineage, it will be infra dig for him because Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi is a public intellectual of great merit in his own right today in India. And if you count these public intellectuals that we have, they are just a few. We can count them on our fingertips. And he has been a governor. And he has also been secretary to a former president, Mr. K.R. Narayanan. So he has very strong credentials to be vice president, though he doesn't have any parliamentary experience. But there have been many vice presidents without any parliamentary experience. His immediate predecessor, Mr. Hamid Ansari, had no parliamentary experience. So it isn't at all surprising that they have put his name. Secondly, for the ruling party to oppose someone like him with such impeccable credentials would be a little difficult, though they are bound to oppose him. But the third and the most important point is that Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi's candidature was mooted not by the Congress party, but by other opposition. And in that limited sense, the Congress party has done a course correction from the talent scouting which it was doing for the presidential election, where it stuck to its own candidate Meera Kumar, and they waited until the ruling party gave their candidate. This time they have first given their candidate and put the ruling party in a rather difficult position of rejecting him and giving another one. So it's an interesting strategy, and that has also perhaps helped them present a more united picture on the vice presidential candidature than they were able to present for the presidential candidature.
Right. Aditi Phadnis, has that what has happened? Has the Congress or the opposition learned from its mistake from the presidential nomination, and then that's why decided to nominate the candidate before the ruling party or the NDA?
Well, I would say that that's tactics rather than strategy, and certainly given the kind of debates that have been going on about the Congress, the way it's been behaving in Bihar, its major cause of heartburn between JDU and Congress is the fact that Congress hasn't really won any elections but is kind of throwing its weight about in the coalition. That has caused, in the recent past caused a lot of tension in the opposition. I would like to look at it slightly differently and say that the choice of Mr. Gandhi is actually in a continuum that goes back to Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, and the fact that a professional person, maybe with a background in politics, maybe has been intermittently the vice president and therefore the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So I would have thought that that's the endorsement of Gopal Gandhi as Vice President is a very, very good choice, especially as it comes immediately after Hamid Ansari, who is also a very well-known professional. And Gopal Gandhi, if I think we are assuming that he is a losing candidate because there's an overwhelming majority of the NDA in the Electoral College. But if he had become Vice President, even President for that matter, he would have, I think, done India proud.
Okay. You know, Mr. Tandon, do you believe that, you know, it's going to be difficult now for the NDA to come up with a candidate who's going to be better than Gopal Krishna Gandhi? They really have to pull a rabbit out of the hat?
I doubt there will be any problem. See, the thing is, after the choice of presidential nominee by the opposition, there was criticism on two counts. Number one, why did you delay it? Why did you wait for the NDA to first come with a candidate? And second was that why did you react? Dalit versus Dalit. So these two criticisms were faced by the entire opposition. And now this time apparently they have first announced the candidate. But one thing which is not being discussed in the media is that if Gopal Gandhi's choice is to have a united opposition, well, Gopal Krishna Gandhi was available even for the presidential nominee also. So that means in the first round, for the choice of the presidential nominee, certain opposition parties were least bothered about opposition unity, and there the blame lies with the Congress. See, Gopal Gandhi's name, as Aditi said, was there in 2012 election as well, and this time round his name was being suggested by the left, by many other political parties for the presidential candidate, but it was not acceptable to Congress. And that is what delayed the nomination for the presidential election, if I am correct. There were 3-4 rounds. In every round, non-Congress opposition were suggesting Gopal Gandhi's name, telling them that there could be a unanimity on his name and we can put up a united opposition candidate. And especially when the presidential election was not a foregone conclusion in the sense that the NDA didn't have an absolute majority. They were still short of some
That's
votes.
not the case in this time around.
This time around. And now why Congress has accepted Gopal Gandhi? That shows that at the first instance they did not want to concede the presidential nominee to a non-Congress person. Now also they have given the vice presidential nomination to Gopal Gandhi, who is a non-political person. So at the meeting of 18 opposition parties, Congress, having got the presidential nominee, has not given vice presidential nominee to any other political party. So that is a very clever move on the part of the Congress. See, all opposition parties in the first place, as I said, including Trinamool Congress, were favouring Gopal Krishna Gandhi. Even Nitish Kumar was favouring Gopal Krishna Gandhi for the presidential nominee. But there they did not concede. Now they have given it to a non-Congress person, a political person, but not to any regional political party or non-Congress political party.
Sure.
So Gopal Gandhi's choice has always been there as a widely acceptable choice, and there cannot be any debate on his credentials. And but one thing which I would like to say, I was personally, as I have known Gopal Gandhi for about more than 20 years, knowing fully well that he is not going to be elected, perhaps he would have refrained himself from getting into the politics of vice presidential election, especially when he is not going to win, because in 2012 he could have been a winner.
Right.
And at that time he was not put up even for vice presidentship. So that is one thing which perhaps must have been hurting Gopal Gandhi, and now because it's a foregone conclusion, but well, he has accepted it, and I think he is one of the best choices as far as opposition is concerned.
Sure. Okay. As far as the opposition is concerned, is what you're suggesting. You know, Professor Pant, as we've heard the journalist speak now, as a political analyst, what is your reading of what has happened?
Well, I think whether it's hurting Mr. Gopal Gandhi or not, it certainly hurts me that we are discussing a presidential or a vice presidential candidate in terms of his partisan support or loyalties. I think the Constitution doesn't envisage, the founding fathers could never have imagined that the presidential post or the vice presidential post would be discussed in terms of ruling party's candidate and opposition party's candidate. I think it demeans the office. I mean, the individual and his credentials are impeccable. But the moment we start discussing that he is opposition's candidate, I mean, I must make my full confession at the moment. I'm a great admirer of Mr. Gopal Gandhi. I have not known him personally as Shri Tandon and some others might have known, but I have known him in public life, and I have known his humility, his modesty, his razor-sharp intellect, and almost encyclopedic, like a Renaissance man, kind like of a range of interests and equipment.
So you're suggesting that we should rise above party lines, but why will the
No, I'll go further. I'll go further. It also hurts me whenever he is mentioned, he said Gandhiji's grandson, and one distinguished journalist has mentioned as Gandhiji's great-grandson now. So I think the problem is that I think the lineage is not important in a democracy. His own credentials, service in IAS, service in diplomatic arena, looking after culture, a playwright of eminence who has written about the composite culture of this country and his play on Dara Shikoh. You may have Dara Shikoh as your hero or a villain, but he has literary achievements to his credit. He teaches with the degree of passion at a private university at the moment post-retirement from his post of governor, where the students are enthralled. He flies twice a week from Chennai. So there is a man who's well-rounded, who has held constitutional office as a governor, who has held office as a diplomat, and he has skills perhaps to negotiate.
Mr. Tandon has a counter, and then I'll let you complete. I'll come back to you.
Allow me just to take the last sentence.
Yes.
He may have a counter for me. I'm not here to canvass for Mr. Gandhi.
Right.
I'm only making the limited theoretical point that an individual should not be identified during the contest as opposition's candidate or ruling party's candidate and then be tested.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, Mr. Tandon.
No, the point is well taken. But Professor, I would like to know from you, then why was he not picked up for presidential nominee this time or vice presidential nominee last time? With a person with such impeccable credentials.
Sir, the answer...
So that means, no, sir, that means there is politics.
Oh, sir,
and if you can't say that there should not be any politics. The politics has been played with Gopal Gandhi itself since 2012. Why was politics played with? He was literally made a football. In 2012, you consider him for presidency, then you consider him for vice presidency, then you forget about him. When it comes that there is total near unanimity within the opposition on his name for presidential nominee, he was not considered by Congress party. This time round, you want to show there is a unanimity within the Congress party, opposition, therefore Gopal Gandhi.
Okay.
No, are we making fun of Gopal Gandhi or what?
Okay. Yes, yes, Professor Pant.
I think Mr. Sharma also wants to chip in.
Yeah.
Then you probably...
Okay, then I'll come back to you. Yes, Mr. Sharma.
First of all, my very dear friend Mr. Tandon almost made me smile, you know. He tickled me with his self-righteous indignation, you know. He was very much in the thick of it when Mr. Krishnakant never got the candidature, despite the backing of the Prime Minister, whose advisor my friend Mr. Ashok Tandon was. Then the second choice of the Prime Minister was also not accepted, which was P.C. Alexander. It was the third choice, APJ Abdul Kalam, who was not the first choice of the Prime Minister, but of PDP and the Samajwadi Party, who got the nod. Now, this is politics. Insofar as Mr. Pant's, he's pained by the fact that, we are discussing these candidatures in terms of support and opposition. But the unfortunate bit is that since 1967, when Koka Subbarao contested against Zakir Hussain, the trend was set that here was a former judge who entered the fray, and the first contest for the presidency happened. It was then that the first contest for presidency happened, and he got fairly good number of votes, Professor Pant, if you remember.
I do.
And that was 67 in the backdrop of Congress's major defeat across states. So, unfortunately, these constitutional positions that should be above partisan politics, we now allow ourselves to perhaps delude in the idea that once they occupy those constitutional positions, they would be bipartisan. But that is also not a fact, that partisan play comes in their decisions. And if you can study presidency after presidency, you would get to know that there were occasions when presidents seemed to have let the countrymen down as the first citizen of the country. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad will get the maximum marks on that score. And even on article dismissal of governments, presidents have said yes to the unreasonable advice of the cabinet, but that's the nature of our constitution and the separation of powers. The president can at best ask the government to reconsider, but the government, after reconsidering, if it sends the proposal back, is to sign, because
Right.
we can't have an adversarial presidency, to an elected government, and the nature of the presidency is determined by the process by which it is elected, which is indirect elections.
Sure, sure. You know, at the end of the day, Aditi Fadnavis, it is an opportunity for the BJP, and the BJP does not want to let go of this opportunity that is being laid out on a platter.
Well, the question really is what is it that the job brings to the table? What is it that the job entails? One set of people in the BJP is saying that the house will pretty much run itself, that no particular skill, no special effort is required to run it. There is another section of the BJP which is saying that the BJP by itself will not get a majority till actually 2021, maybe 22. Because the number of MPs who increase from the BJP are incremental, even though the BJP may have had spectacular electoral successes in recent elections. So the question is, you do need some skills to run the house. You do need eyes at the back of your head, particularly when there are such important people in the Rajya Sabha from the opposition as Anand Sharma, Ghulam Nabi Azad and P. Chidambaram and Manmohan Singh. So these are people who know what they are talking about. Kapil Sibal is a well-known lawyer. These are people who know what democracy and running the mechanics of democracy are all about. And Rajya Sabha is the only house, given the nature of our parliament, where you can actually put the opposition, I mean, put the government on the mat. So, given this kind of a background, what kind of a person do you need as a vice president and therefore the chairman of the Rajya Sabha? You need a person who has experience, who has some idea of running democracy, who has some idea of, well, seemingly bipartisan kind of conduct, and who understands the political challenges even before they become challenges.
Sure.
So, I don't know what that kind of person is whom the BJP will propose, but to me it seems that you need an experienced person to run the house. That continues to be a challenge.
Okay. Mr. Tandon, do you want to respond to what Mr. Sharma said first? And also, secondly, can we get some guesses as far as who could be a possible candidate really? Because I know it's a difficult job. I know it's going to be extremely difficult because no one really had Ramnath Kovind on their lips when we spoke about the presidential election. But I'm still going to try and get a guess from you.
I think let's avoid guessing, because media also has stopped guessing and speculating about the NDA's vice presidential candidate. Let's wait for a couple of days. No, but my question to Professor still remains: why Gopal Gandhi was denied the presidentship in 20?
Okay, let him respond to that, and then I'll come back to
that
you.
has hurt me, because he is a good friend of mine, and since 2012 we have been making, his name was floated, particularly when UPA was in power. And if
let him
all
respond
of-
to that, and
yeah.
then you can add to that.
Yeah, because that is very critical, because when he could have become president or vice president, he was not considered.
Sure.
And now,
Yes, Professor.
I
even
think
not
Mr.
considered
Tandon
for
has been an
president.
insider and a backroom boy for much too long, and I think he knows fully well why he was denied office and under what considerations. I would only answer in a limited manner that there are two things. When my good friend Mr. Vinod Sharma says something about, I also do realize at the age of 70 plus that there is enough politicization and there should be politics in democracy, but whether that politics should be purely partisan, or I have no problems with ideological politics taking over these elections. My problem is when a united opposition, a motley crowd with no ideological unity, and one party, the dominant partner in that family-held concern, mired in 100 controversies, sort of poses this as an ideological battle, in dubious battle, and the forces arrayed. I find it amusing. But to go back to Mr. Tandon's point, why Mr. Gopal Gandhi allows himself to be a football, a handball, a shuttlecock is not my concern. I mean, that's for Mr. Gandhi to decide himself. I think he's wise enough a person, experienced enough a person, and to champion a lost cause. I mean, that is what Subhash Bose was told once by Jawaharlal Nehru in a bunch of old letters. I think his grandfather fought several causes which were lost causes. So probably there is some residual sense of decency in a man, in a democracy who says, fine, I will go down fighting, but I will fight and make a point. So that's the short answer to his question. My problem is still one more. He is reluctant to take a guess. The other journalists might be taking a reluctant guess. I will not name names, but I will put my neck on a chopper. Now what the NDA will do, it will squeeze on the other leg. They will pull a rabbit out of their hat. In this country of 1.35 billion people, surely there are, Vinod rightly said, public intellectuals can be counted, eminent public intellectuals on a finger of one hand with thumb to spare. That you thumb your nose at the opposition. But the point is, this game of musical chairs, who grabs it fast, they know they have the numbers, they will pull the surprise on the united opposition by pulling on them. They can't pull a caste card, but a minority card and a tribal card and a gender card can still be pulled.
Okay.
So if that happens, that divides the united opposition, again the son of soil or the daughter of soil principle will come. And I think, again no names because it might hurt the candidature of a person or the other.
Right.
I can think of two eminent ladies of different ages who have held constitutional office, who have enough experience and who will have primordial loyalties in the democracy.
I think you've given us enough to muster a guess. but Mr. Tandon, do you want to add something?
No, I have no reason to disagree with Professor as far as his guess and speculation is concerned. But as I said, in politics, it's very difficult to speculate because Mr. Modi is known for, surprises. He has surprised the nation on several occasions, and you never know. But going by conventional wisdom, I tend to agree with him that these are the perhaps options before the NDA. But I think let's wait for a couple of days.
Okay, fair enough. Taking the discussion forward, Mr. Sharma, we've got 4 minutes left on the program. So quick closing comments from all my guests. With all that's been happening with the JDU and with the RJD, really, do you believe that the Mahagathbandhan is now here to stay with the JDU backing the vice presidential nominee?
Yeah, I think that Nitish will back Gopal Krishna Gandhi. It suits Nitish to back Gopal Krishna Gandhi. Let's not forget. You see,
no, he even proposed Gopal Krishna Gandhi for presidency.
No, that's what I said in the very first instance. He was a candidate who was proposed by the left and Trinamool and JDU, and at that time for the presidential race, and which didn't find acceptability, and the Congress cut a sorry figure. But this time the Congress has sought to make some course correction. Whether it is of any value or not, I cannot say. But they have tried to make a course correction. And Gopal Krishna Gandhi, insofar as the experience bit my friend Aditi was mentioning, if I may help recall that there was a president called Gopal Swarup Pathak. He didn't have any great experience. He came from the judiciary. Then we had Mr. Hidayatullah. He was from judiciary. And then we had Mr. Hamid Ansari. When Mr. Hamid Ansari was made vice president, I remember that there was a lot of speculation whether he'd be able to run the house, but he has done a pretty formidable job. And he's the only person who did 2 terms back to back in the history of India as vice president.
Sure.
So he was a fairly successful vice president. And if a non-political person coming with an academic background or like Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi is also an academic cum diplomat,
Sure.
Like Mr. Hamid Ansari, and even President Narayanan came from, of course, he had the experience of electoral politics, legislative politics, he was a minister, but he was...
Sharma, I'm going to ask you to conclude because of shortage of time.
But he was a diplomat at the same time. So he was also a good vice president and as president.
Your point's taken. Aditi Phadnis, your closing comments on the program.
Well, I would tend to agree with Tandon Saab. Tandon Saab is senior in reporting, and as a reporter, he knows, we've learned from him that you never speculate about something that's going to happen tomorrow. You may speculate about something that's going to happen next year, but you certainly don't do it when it's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh.
So I think
let's wait and watch. It's just a couple of days away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we waited this long. We can wait for another few more days.
Yeah.
Mr. Tandon, your closing comments.
Well, all my best wishes to my friend Gopal Gandhi. I wish the opposition now, which was earlier ruling party in the UPA, would have given him a chance and he would have served the nation much better, even as president or even as vice president. I wish him well for becoming vice presidential.
Will he be an acceptable candidate for the NDA?
I don't think so. See, politics, because why should NDA accept an opposition candidate? Howsoever good he may be, but they have a clear mandate, clear majority. So I don't think they will even, I mean, there is no, first of all, opposition is not going to approach NDA to support Gopal Gandhi, which
Okay,
they
right.
should. But I don't think there is any reason for NDA to accept it.
Okay, fair enough. Professor Pant, close the show for us
Very
with your
briefly,
concluding
the
remarks.
Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, the battle is not to the brave, nor the race to the swift. Chance and happenstance play a role in our lives, and that's going to happen this time.
Okay, fine. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. I'd like to thank all my guests, Aditi Fadnis, Ashok Tandon, Vinod Sharma and Pushpesh Pant for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have today. See you again next time.